Incredible. Doesn't end there, though.
Okay, so we do have
here, let's see what Fox has to say about it. They're probably so horny.
Supreme Court. It deals with guns in America. It's a 6-3 ruling, but we have not seen the opinion yet, Dana. At issue here was New York State rifle and pistol versus Bruin. It's the biggest gun control case the court has had in 14 years. At issue, 2 gun owners in New York had their applications denied based on a failure to show what is considered a proper cause. In states like New York, to carry a concealed weapon outside of the home, you need special permission to do that, and these men were arguing that's a violation of Second Amendment rights. So the court holds, here we go now, the court holds that New York's proper cause requirement to obtain a concealed carry license violates the Constitution.
Yep.
By preventing law-abiding citizens with ordinary self-defense needs from exercising their Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms in public for self-defense. That's the ruling 6-3. It'll affect states like New York and about 7 others that had similar restrictive rules.
This is a significant, big case. I know we have Jonathan Turley, and I believe we have Shannon Bream with us, so we'll get them here in just a moment. Just let me set up one thing, and then we also have Andy McCarthy. This is really good. So it's 6-3. And one of the things that happened in this case, and Jonathan, maybe I'll go to you first if you're able, is that the gun rights activists, once they started down this road, they might have realized at some point, as I remember reading, that they might have actually hurt their cause here. Because this decision, for the gun rights people, it kind of backfired. For people who were wanting people to have more self-defense rights, it seems that they have won in this Supreme Court case.
They have won, and it is an interesting point that you make. New York has been the gift that keeps on giving for gun rights advocates. They, like D.C. and Chicago, have lost major cases before the Supreme Court. This was a case that many of us rode on when it was in the lower courts. I thought that it would result as it did today, that this was a case that clearly was unconstitutional under the controlling authority of Heller. And what you have in jurisdictions like New York is there's a very strong gun control effort, but they often produce cases that, quite frankly, are welcomed by many gun rights advocates, because you can create, in their view, this was a bad case to make some good law, and they did so. This is a 6-3 decision. You have Justice Thomas looking at the history of the Second Amendment, looking at the holding in Heller, and saying that the answer is clear, that you cannot impose this burden on gun owners to be able to carry a concealed weapon.
Jonathan, stand by here. I know you and Andy McCarthy and Shannon Bream are reading through this, through the opinion right now. And Shannon, I want to go to you, but just to put a headline here, in a major ruling for gun rights, the Supreme Court has sided with these 2 gun owners in New York, saying that they're striking down, rather, the restrictive gun law in New York State. Shannon, to you, what do you read?
Yeah, what had happened is these 2 gun owners were looking for the opportunity to carry a concealed weapon. They had other licenses and other things that allowed them to carry their guns for specific reasons. But they said, I just want to be able to carry one. I think that that's my constitutional right. But in New York,
I know the guy outside of Kavanaugh's house called the cops and admitted he wanted to kill a Supreme Court justice. He snitched on himself. I know. But I'm saying that, like, you still can't get away with, like, having a fucking weapon. You looking mad, brother? Of course I'm mad. If you're not mad, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. This is, like, insane. They are, like, there can never be any reasonable boundaries placed between an American citizen and guns. You just can't do it. With this Supreme Court, they're basically stating there are no reasonable boundaries. Everything is unreasonable. They're basically admitting that. They're saying no shot. Like, yes, it is incredibly difficult for concealed carry permits to be given out in New York, okay? For good reason. It is incredibly high population density, okay? It is one way that they've avoided having so many fucking loose guns running around the city. Guns that can end up in the wrong hands. Guns that will accidentally fire. That's why New York and California have significantly lower gun fatalities than red states, despite being incredibly fucking dense areas. Okay? It's crazy. This is before we even talk about whether or not the good guy with a gun narrative, which is a lie, is actually valid. Like, do people genuinely defend themselves with constitutional carry? They don't. Does that account for suicide? Yes, it accounts for suicide as well. And you can't even fucking move to a blue state to avoid gun violence, okay? If you thought that was a thing. It's just so strange that they are like they get away with this. I fucking hate it.
You had to have a special showing. You had to have a reason to say that you had a justification for carrying a gun in a concealed way. Well, they said there shouldn't be those restrictions. If I'm a law-abiding citizen, I should be able to carry. So in striking down that New York law and essentially sending this case back down, here is what Justice Thomas, writing for the majority 6-3, says. He says the constitutional right to bear arms in public for self-defense is, quote,
Oh, they also passed the anti-BDS law too, which is like literally just a violation of the First Amendment. So the idea that like the First Amendment is even not up for grabs or has to be protected is also bullshit. They literally just passed the anti-boycott legislation. They said the boycotts are not constitutionally protected. Fun fact, boycotts, BDS was not originally tailored around the Israeli apartheid state, but the South African apartheid state. Supreme Court now, many, many years later, decided that that is unconstitutional. I mean, that is going to happen. That's what they could potentially do. The Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled today that boycotts are not protected by the First Amendment. The Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals said that. The ACLU is confirming that it'll take the case to the Supreme Court with huge implications for free speech in America. Sorry, I said the Supreme Court originally. It's the Eighth Circuit, but it will go to the Supreme Court. Some red flag debunking from an actual gun violence researcher and expert. FYI, it isn't how red flags actually work. Responders are notified of the petition, hearing on it, and can testify and present witnesses and evidence on their own behalf. The petitioner would also have to have more than a photo of a gun or an ERPO to be granted. This is Jane, a radical professor. Jane works at the same company as Randy, who posts content of his scary guns and target shooting. Triggered by this content and knowing that Randy recently argued with his boss, Jane reports him to the authorities. Leftist-controlled police departments. Leftist-controlled police departments. Where are these leftist-controlled police departments, dude? 87% of police vote Republican, voted for Donald Trump. That's awesome. According to Police Magazine. I guess they're controlled by the leftists, though, the departments themselves. Get fuck lib. Yeah, historically leftist police is how it works. God, country. I hate it. I hate this country so much. Yeah. Randy is unable to defend himself in court or counter the evidence. Anti-2A judge infringes on Randy's 2A rights. Yeah, this is not how this works, but it doesn't matter because you know what works? Propaganda, okay? That's not how the actual process works, but that doesn't matter. The process is completely irrelevant to the subject matter. What is actually fucking relevant is how much staying power this kind of fucking misinformation has. Dude, the Supreme Court never gives good decisions, like, ever. Oh. Wild to think that people were expecting this kind of decline during the Trump administration, yet all of this is happening well into Joe Brandon admin. It's the consequences of Trump's and McConnell's 3 Supreme Court seats. I mean, this is a long time coming. Like I said, the Federalist Society was created in what, 1982? They've been working towards this for many, many years. They want it more. They want fascism more than Democrats want to stop it. That's just the reality. Democrats don't even want to stop fascism as long as they can still maintain their grip on power. Just the truth. Okay, this has been a long, well-designed, well-oiled machine, a long campaign that's been coming for a very long time. That's it.
Not a second-class right subject to an entirely different body of rules than the other Bill of Rights guarantees. And he's used this language before, talking about the fact that he thought that the Second Amendment was, in some cases, being treated as a second-class right. He goes on to say, we know of no other constitutional right that an individual may exercise only, excuse me, my computer here, only after demonstrating to government.
You know what's really funny about this take, by the way, which is like totally false? They literally violated they just destroyed the Fourth Amendment, which is very clear cut. Like there is no, like last week, the Supreme Court shat all over the Fourth Amendment, which is insane. Like and that is significantly more clear cut and well defined than the Second Amendment and its like current modern interpretation of it. That's incredible, dude.
Officials some special need. That is not how the First Amendment works when it comes to unpopular speech or the free exercise of religion. It is not how the Sixth Amendment works when it comes to a defendant's right to confront the witnesses against him. And it is not how the Second Amendment works when it comes to
elaborate without saying insane. It's hypocritical. Is that a better word for me to tell you? It's totally hypocritical. Absolutely betrays the institutionalist argument that the Supreme Court is actually a legitimate institution that cares about, different interpretations of the Constitution. Is that what? No, it is insane though. It's fucking insane. It's psychotic. It's just deranged. There are no other words I can use in this situation. Okay, it's insane.
Public carry for self-defense. So he says New York's proper cause requirement, or that this special showing that you have to carry a gun, violates the 14th Amendment in that it prevents law-abiding citizens with ordinary self-defense needs from exercising their right to keep and bear arms. The dissent is written by Justice Breyer. Of course, he is just days away from retirement. He's joined by Justices Kagan and Sotomayor. Haven't read his dissent yet. It's about 135 pages long, but we're getting there. That's the headline ruling. Bill, a big win for gun rights advocates.
Just picking one line out here, Shannon, from Justice Thomas. The government will have to show, he says, that a gun regulation is, quote, consistent with this nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation, which goes right to the Second Amendment. To Andy McCarthy now, and your reaction, Andy.
This nation's historical firearm regulation is not having firearm regulation, is what they're saying, by the way. Like that's the modern interpretation of the Second Amendment, which is, no infringement on a citizen and their God-given, constitutionally protected right to own weapons. I hate it. I hate it so much, man. It sucks so fucking bad, dude. It sucks so fucking bad. I think people are too dumb and can't comprehend this outside of the lens of like, well, my party's winning, brother. My party's winning, brother. That's right. Fuck yeah. Like they don't want to think about the systemic consequences of said opinions, actions, and what will end up happening. Gun violence will be on the rise in New York. That's it. That's the only thing you get out of this. It'll be on the rise in places like New Jersey, places like California. Sensitive places they're talking about? Yeah.
Well, I think this is a faithful rendition of what the Second Amendment is, which is really the most misunderstood amendment in our public discourse, I think, Bill. The Second Amendment is not a right to bear arms so much as it is an acknowledgement that there is a pre-existing right to bear arms that existed and was derived from natural rights at the time the Constitution was ratified. So it's not a positive grant of a right. It's an acknowledgement of a right that already existed, and it's a prohibition on government from regulating that right. So if you're within the ambit of the right to keep and bear arms as it was understood, the idea is not the government's doing you a favor and allowing you to defend yourself. The point of the right is to limit the ability of government to disarm the public in terms of that ambit of what the Second Amendment.
Dude, I love, this is why I love constitutional professors, like constitutional law professors. Like, they literally just sit around and make shit up. That's it. Like, this is just a made up concept. It doesn't even say that in the fucking writing, dude. You just made that up. Like, no part of like a fucking well-regulated militia says that, okay? You're just making that up. You made that shit up. This is no different than like at a time when fucking peasants didn't know how to read Latin. The preachers would like just lie about whatever the fuck was in the Bible. You know what I mean? Yeah, the Bible said I could fuck your children. Sorry. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. Ridiculous. Fucking ridiculous, dude.
Protects. So, you know, our discourse seems to presume that government has a right to regulate as long as it's reasonable. And what the Constitution says is, no, you have a right to defend yourself. And the Second Amendment is a limitation on the government, not a limitation on you.
Interestingly, in looking at this, Jonathan, I wanted maybe a little bit of a two-part question here, which is, this is seismic for a lot of reasons, especially because it's not just New York. These are the other states where it would have an effect. California, Delaware, Hawaii, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and Rhode Island. And when you have a case like this that has such a seismic impact, how long does it take for a state, those other states or even New York, to change its rules? As of today, does it change?
Oh, those are presumptively unconstitutional, and they should be changed. But the question is, they really can't be enforced to the degree that they contradict this decision. This is a momentous decision for gun rights advocates and for the Second Amendment. It has all of the elements that you often associate.
It's just crazy to just look at like a piece of paper written by a bunch of dudes who were like dying at the age of 45 and like dying from smallpox, like dying from gangrene, you know what I mean? Who like thought black people were fucking not human and owned them as slaves, thought women were not fucking fully developed humans, wanted to build a system for white landowning slavers, you know what I mean? And we're like, yeah, no, that we want to get into the mind of that person. That's what we want to do. We need to figure out what the fuck they were thinking. It's just so stupid. I don't know how else to describe it other than how fucking stupid this is. Okay. It's just, I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. It's like, oh, sorry, this piece of paper says I can kill you and take all your money. You know? I guess we just got to live with that now. Well, why? Why do we have to live with that? None of those motherfuckers are around. Who gives a shit? And we do that, by the way. We actually literally do that. We do that. We are literally doing that right now. We're like, sorry, that's what the piece of paper says. I just like, I feel I'm losing faith in humanity.
With a Thomas opinion, he brings up sort of originalist history, swatting back arguments from later and after the ratification as largely irrelevant to understanding the intent behind the Second Amendment. But most importantly, the court rejects a two-part.
That's what they want, bro. Well, they succeeded. Like, it just feels so fucking hopeless, man. It feels so hopeless to just like do anything against this like incredible power. I know. I try to keep the optimism all the time, but it's like we have all these fucking fully